As most of you know by now, Elementor is working on version 4. This is going to change Elementor in a dramatic way. All of the widgets are going to change. They only have 2 tabs now. We're gonna get the classes feature, but trust me, this feature is not done yet. There's not even global colors. So it was really cool to play around with this, and you can do that as well if you want to now with this new tab, but this is not production ready yet, and we're probably gonna have a period where we're gonna have the old widgets and the new widgets living side by side. It's gonna be interesting, but when I was playing around with this, I realized that I haven't even catched up to many of the updates from last year. And let me be clear, when version 4 drops, they're probably not gonna remove features. It's only that things are now in a different place, so we just need to know where it is. But all of the features in the backend of Elementor will stay the same, and again, I haven't even catched up to many of these things. For example, have you already created a dynamic off-canvas loop grid? I haven't, but now I did, because I created a test project where I basically tested out all of the newest features from last year so that when version 4 drops, I am at least prepared. So in this video, I want to show you all of those features. I just want to walk through the most interesting things from the last few updates. So I hope it's going to be a nice summary for you. Let's dive in. We have smart display conditions. So for example, you have a website like this where you have a discount code that's only for Wednesday. So you can now just go into a container and then go over here, display conditions, and this is now inside of Elementor. Normally you would have to use some add-on, CrocoBlock or Dynamic OO for that, but now you can do it right here. You can just tell it that you want, for example, a day in the week. So this item will only appear on your website if the day of the week is, let's say, Wednesday, based on server time. The visitor time is still not available, but you can click on save. Right now it's Wednesday when I am recording this, so now it's showing on the front end. But let's say that you are a day too late to this discount, then on the front end it would not display. It would just hide it, which is great. But I think a place where this is even more useful is when you have a loop grid, for example, and you have social media icons. So on this website, we have a custom post type, and each team member has some custom fields. This guy has all of the social media handles. But this woman, Maya, doesn't have any LinkedIn. And therefore, it's not showing LinkedIn on the front end, which is great. So let's see how that works. You can go into your loop item template. So we're now inside of one. So you can now go into one of your icons, go to advanced, open this one, and then give it a condition. So you could scroll down and then you can select dynamic tags. Then you can select your fields. So here are all of your fields, which I created with ACF. And then here I should say is not empty, because then it will only appear if it's not empty, and therefore it will appear when there is some data in there. So now let's try to delete the Instagram from this guy. And let's go to the front. And there you go. Now the Instagram icon of Aisha is hidden. Great. And by the way, this doesn't only work on individual widgets, but also on full containers. You can just select anything in here, even if that's a dynamic tag, which means that you can even take this a step further. For example, you could even go into this container and then in the backend make a link for this button somewhere and then just hide this whole container if there is no link inside here. So again, a lot of possibilities, and finally default in Elementor without external plugins. Then, do you remember the element manager that I showed a while ago? So now we have permissions for each widget. So let's say that you don't want your client to mess around with the form widget, because the form widget is not super easy to use. So then you can simply click on edit here and you say this one is only for admin. So then if you add your client as a user on the website as an editor, then that client will not have access to that widget, which is very useful for clients that are a little bit too curious. Elementor has added new icons over here. We finally have an icon for TikTok. Very nice. Only one though. We even have an icon for X, which is a little bit hard to find, but you can just try to find Twitter. Here you can see we have two variations for Twitter, for the old icon and for the new icon, but we don't have that for TikTok. And we even have Threads now, which also has two. So I'm just kindly suggesting here, two for TikTok would also be nice. Another dynamic feature which I really love is that you can simply display a list right now with categories. Yes, and this sounds a bit simple, but it's really needed for many web shops where you just want to display different categories. Like we have walnut tables or oak tables. And then when you click on it, you can of course link to an archive which is based on that specific category. So now this dynamic page is not a real page, it's the dynamic page, only shows walnut tables here. And yes, this page was already possible because we had dynamic archive pages for products and custom post types, but we didn't have the option to make a list like this where you display those categories. But then, how do you get that image in there? Because does a category actually have an image? Yes, you can link the category image in here with dynamic tags. So this feature is perfect for WooCommerce. You can use it for custom post types, but then you have to add an image field to your category in order to make that work. That's a little bit complex, but you can make it work if you want. Another feature which I am a huge fan of is the off-canvas dynamic capabilities. So it sounds a bit complex, but normally you have a list with products, right? Or a list with posts, whatever the post may be. And if you want to get more information about it, you basically have to go inside of the item to see more information. Like this. But sometimes you just want to have a quick view like this, which doesn't open the full page. You're still staying on the page. You can just click outside of it, but you do get more information, maybe just a bigger image or maybe some more explanation. This was not possible without external plugins before, but now it is thanks to the off-canvas widget, which is a new widget. If you type in off, you can see off-canvas. I have inserted it here. You can just see it in the layers panel, and that will then give you the option to create that pop-up. But it's not a pop-up. The original pop-ups in Elementor are over here. We know this. Many people have used this to create a cool menu in the top or just create pop-ups for marketing, right? But this also is like a pop-up. It looks like a pop-up, but because it's not a pop-up that's saved somewhere hidden in the Elementor template section, we can just pull in dynamic data in the same way as you would pull in dynamic data for the product title, for the price, for the categories, etc. So how it works is you would drag in the off-canvas widget. It works a little bit weird because it's not really showing it here exactly. It's giving you this pop-up right in your face, and then you can decide here how you want to display it. So you can say, I don't want it to be too high. It should be this wide. And then you can literally just drag in images. So for example, the featured image, which is already loaded in because this is a WooCommerce page, right? So that image is already there. You can drag in all kinds of dynamic widgets or just a heading widget and then link it to whatever custom field you have set up. And then if you want to go back to your panel, you just turn off the editing mode because otherwise it's constantly in your face. And then you can just go to a random button inside of your loop item, and then you can connect it to the off canvas to open it, to trigger it. So now we have this option over here, off canvas, and then you can select it. So this button should open the off canvas, and then you can select the off canvas. Right now I have two, but normally you would only have one. So let me just delete this one, and then we only have one, and there you go. Now when you save it, it just opens that window. So this widget doesn't really show on the front end is just here to make sure that this is actually working. I hope that that makes sense because this one is a little bit confusing. Another widget which is really cool is the WhatsApp icon here in the corner. It's called a floating button. You can click on it and then you can see a message, and then when you click here, you can link it to your WhatsApp number so that people can actually chat with you when clicking this button. So it's not a real chat, it's basically a fake chat, but it's really cool and it will probably increase conversions because in many countries, WhatsApp is the main way to do business instead of using forms or emails. So this is really cool. So how you do that is by going into Elementor, and now we have floating elements in here. There's actually two types. We have buttons and bars. So here at the top, you can also see this floating bar with a coupon code. That's also an option. This is the same functionality, okay? It's floating things on top of your website, basically. Let's try a new one, okay? You add a floating button, for example. Let's first try button and just do WhatsApp version 3 because I already have 2. And then you have to choose one of their templates. You cannot completely design it from scratch. It's not like a sticky button at the bottom of your website. You have to use one of their options. This is the default one, but there's even like Facebook Messenger if you like that. Okay, let's try this one. We're just gonna insert it. And there you go, now it's inserted. And of course you can customize this. You can even change it here to Messenger. And that completely changes the design already, which is pretty cool. You can change the message inside, the name, typing animation, and of course the image. It is by default a little bit big, but you don't have the freedom with normal widgets because this is just one big widget where everything comes together, and it makes it really easy to use, honestly. I really like this feature a lot. And then if you select a floating bar, then you will see some other options which are also pre-made. The previews here are a little bit small because they want to show the whole bar, so it's almost too small to read. No, I would say it is too small to read. Can I read it? No, I can't. So there are a few cool options. First is this animated bar, which I've learned is not so good for accessibility, but it is really cool. You cannot just put this somewhere in between your website, by the way. I've already tried that, but it doesn't work. It's just the top or the bottom of your website. And then you have that coupon field, which is also really cool. People can just click it and then it will automatically copy that coupon field. So really cool if you have a web shop. And then you can even go into display conditions because they also build display conditions in here. So don't look for it in here. Okay, so here you can say that you want to display it on, for example, the entire site. But the display conditions over here are not as advanced as the display conditions we get for individual widgets and containers, unfortunately, because it would be really cool if you could also select here, hey, I want to display this bar only on the weekend because we have a collection going on, right? This is a marketing kind of tool. So I would really like them to add the same conditions as we have for the widgets. The functionality is already built in, right? So why not also have that in here? I think that would be a great addition. I hope the Elementor team is watching this video. We'll see, we'll see. And then we have some new widgets, which is hidden here at the bottom, called link in bio. So if you want to have a link in bio to basically connect your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube to each other, then you can use these simple pre-made widgets. And so you can just drag in one of them right here, and then it will just give you this. And this is of course mainly used for mobile. And then you just have some basic settings in here, images, you can add your links. And this is the basic design, but they have some more designs here. For example, this is another one. And as you can see, the layout is not that hard to make if you would make it yourself on a page, but it's really nice that it's here. Everything that allows us to work a little bit faster is great. And then the search bar widget has had a huge update. Right now we have Ajax preview search in here. So let's say that I am looking for something like oak. You just type it in here and now you can display a preview of the search results, which is really cool. And then you can click on them to go to the individual pages. And that just makes the experience a little bit nicer. And the search widget before this was very limited actually. So I'm very happy that we finally have a proper search widget now. So you can set up some basic things here, but you need to make sure that your query is set up right so that it loads the things that you want it to load. For example, products from WooCommerce or something from your custom post type. Also really cool that they already included custom post types in here. And before this release, we had to do this with Jet's Search from CrocoBlock. I don't think there were a lot of other great options in order to do this. So again, really cool, now built into Elementor Pro. Then this is one of these features that I am not sure if I wanted to show you, but I was like, it's interesting. It's an ad block pop-up. So something like this. Your settings, by the way, can be found in the pop-up settings. It's a little bit hidden. You would think that these settings would be here, but they're actually in here. Then you can just design it however you like. Then the button in here should be linked to reload the page, because if a user disables the pop-up after seeing this, then you have to reload in order for it to work. So this is just a reload feature, which you can now find in the dynamic tags now. Here, reload the page, okay? And then here, inside of the display conditions, you can put it on entire site. Makes sense for this feature. And then in triggers, we now have ad block detection. Within 2 seconds, you can change this. If you put that on, okay, then what happens when you're on the website and you actually have an ad blocker, which is on right now, then you will get this one. So some websites run on pop-ups. They make money with ads, and then they don't want people without an ad blocker. So you can just put this. And even if you click the X and you would go to another page, look, there it is again. So only if you turn off the ad blocker, then you refresh, then it will not come back. So it actually works. I don't generally create websites where ads are running. Some people do. So now we have that option. Then we finally have a proper way to use the grid. So we've had that grid for quite a while now, right? It was here. I didn't personally like it because you had to use all kinds of tricks and even custom CSS to make something work. But now it's a lot better. So now I trust it and I am planning to make a tutorial on it soon. But here you can see a setup where it's really easy. You can just use sliders over here to define how many columns you want, and then it will automatically wrap depending on how you set up your containers. So inside of the containers that are part of the grid, you now in the advanced tab have column span. So for example, this one should be 2 or 3 or 1, and then it will change that according to the grid that you set up. So finally we have a proper grid, and as you can see, it's really easy to use. And also automatically, if you would turn off one of this, because it's a wrap, it will just push the next item on that place. So you have to be smart with the grid. This one is designed well, that's why it closes perfectly, but it works. By the way, if you want that feature, you should make sure that auto flow is on row. So we can finally make some cool bento grids easily in Elementor. Very happy about that as well. And then one more, which is the YouTube embed is now vertical for YouTube Shorts. Yes, we live in a time where shorts are very popular. So now it's also possible to just load in a short. So it's basically the normal video widget you're used to. You just dump your short link in here, then you go to style, and then you change 16 by 9 to 9 to 16. And then it becomes a short. It becomes a vertical. Very simple, very nice. And then a small feature, which is actually pretty nice and should have been there a long time ago, I think so, is the link caller inside of the text editor. So sometimes you're linking one word to another website, right? So let's say that you're linking this to google.com, right? That's a link. Now this is the link caller, which is defined by the caller you set up in the site settings inside of typography, and then here the link caller, but there's only one. And the link color on a dark background is not always the same as you want on a light background. And so now we can go into the text widget, go to style, and we have link color over here. So you can link it to one of your other global colors. So maybe this is the color that you want. You see, that's a lot more visible now. So that's great that we have that right now. And I think this will be even easier in the future with classes, because this one is quite hard to manage on a global level, right? Unless you make a specific color just for the link on a dark background, that could be a workaround, but yeah, that's not really the perfect workflow. So I hope that this will become better when we have classes finally. And then the last update, which is quite big, is that Elementor has changed the default theme from Hello Elementor to Hello Biz. Yeah, this one is a little bit interesting, because what is the Biz theme? The Biz theme is basically a theme where you get a few pre-made widgets which are just really easy to work with. For example, you can drag in a hero section like that. Here, look at that. There's even previews like this where you can just change your hero section so easily. There is the zigzag widget, which allows you to create a quick zigzag, which actually works already perfect on a mobile. And normally that would require you to mess around with like container settings, etc. So the Biz theme basically makes things easier and quicker for you. So it's interesting what Elementor is doing. Like at the same time, they're trying to make things super easy and they're adding advanced features. I personally think that that's part of their strategy. They want to be professional, but at the same time, want to keep things easy. Of course, with widgets like this, it's not really easy to work with your classes system. But again, you don't have to use these beginner widgets. It's just there if you want. So if you want a clean theme, you can still use Hello Elementor. And if you like this easy setup, then you can use the Biz theme. I am personally still going to stick to Hello Elementor for now, because I want to adopt that classes workflow, which we're going to get soon, which is going to be really exciting. I cannot wait to implement this in my workflow, and I will, of course, make tutorials about that. Yeah, I just cherry picked the things that I found interesting, and I really hope that soon we're going to have a version 4 with global colors, maybe variables, components, so that we can really adopt a more professional workflow. But for now, we just still have to wait. Okay, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.